And I'm going to prefer those questions because I don't think you guys just want to hear Martin and I talk or me ask your questions for the next like 2 hours. So I'm going to prefer people who want to ask the questions of themselves and maybe have a little conversation with Martin. So just stick your questions there, and Mons will pin them, and we're going to go through and make sure that we're like getting the most interesting questions for you guys. So I'm going to go ahead and post this announcement really quickly. Martin, do you have any questions? I know that you said that you were open to speaking about anything.
Yeah. I just want to make sure you guys can hear me okay and the voice quality's all right.
You sound great. Okay, so I guess we will get started. Thank you guys for showing up. Thank you, Martin, for agreeing to come on and talk to us today.
Thanks for having me.
For people who do not know who you are somehow, can you give them like a quick rundown of your history, how you got involved in the political space, the pharmaceutical space, everything, just like your whole life? Tell them everything
Sure.
they should know about you.
A quick rundown, I guess. So I was born in Brooklyn, New York. I became a business person at a pretty young age. I started working at a hedge fund when I was 16. So I started working for a guy named Jim Cramer, who a lot of people know. He was less well known a long time ago. He was a hedge fund manager. And I was something of like a child prodigy and I think a lot of people will notice that, or seem to notice that. I had sort of I guess like just, I don't know, a tremendous gift intellectually, but whether or not I've used it correctly is up to your opinion. So I finished school and high school and college and stuff like that a little early. I started, like I said, working on Wall Street pretty young, and I had this sort of challenge, kind of like working with all kinds of different people, but I enjoyed it, and I got into pharmaceuticals pretty early. Again, working for Kramer and his associates, and kind of started following pharma and biotech pretty closely. I would end up starting some drug companies that gave me a lot of notoriety, fame, and wealth. I ended up going to prison. So I was in prison for 4 or 5 years. I have a lot to say about that. Some people think that my imprisonment was politically driven. Some people feel it was not. I think that the politics that I sort of started to talk about around the time that I also became well known were a pretty explosive combination. So if you don't know, I was become very sort of notorious for raising the drug price of one medicine by quite a lot, or at least what people perceive to be quite a lot. And that sort of made me, to some extent, an enemy of a number of people, but also a hero or a friend of a number of other people. So it sort of became controversial. Not too many people publicly were willing to sort of back me, but privately I got a lot of support from a lot of people, and we'll talk about that too. So I just came home from prison about 4 or 5 months ago. Happy to be home. I have a lot of experience. People talk about prison a lot. Our country, the United States, is one that happens to imprison more people per capita than virtually any other country. It's very easy to find yourself in prison in America. Many people do. Many famous people, wealthy people go to prison. I had a lot of interactions with the media, which we can talk about too. I've been on Tucker Carlson, maybe on Tucker very shortly again. I've turned down places like Good Morning America and others. I have a lot of inside baseball on the world of politics, media, certainly government slash politics. I know a lot of people in government, met a lot of people in government, a lot of people in media, a lot of people in business. So I've sort of seen all the power circles that we have in our country and kind of have been able to examine them. And especially at a relatively young age, was kind of interesting. I'm not even 40 years old yet. I've been poor, growing up in Brooklyn, New York. I've been very, very wealthy, making it big, sort of on Wall Street and public markets and things like that. So I have a lot of sort of opinions and a lot of perspectives and a lot of things. One thing you won't find about me is I tend not to sort of try to be all things to everyone. I do know a lot of stuff, but I try to be a little Socratic and humble. I don't know everything. I'm not going to talk about things that I don't know a lot about. You're going to hear me say over and over again, that's not something I've looked at. That's not something I've studied. I don't know, are my favorite 3 words. And I think it's okay to say you don't know. And I think for most politicians, they don't say those three words not nearly enough. Basically, they never say them, and I think that's sort of a telling difference between sort of me and them. Is I'm willing to admit that I don't know something. I'm willing to be open minded. Which I think a lot of my sort of fans sort of it tends to turn people off. For some people, like you want to hear a certain narrative from a certain person, say an Alex Jones or something like that, and anytime you hear something counter to that narrative, you sort of turned off as a fan. You want the extreme person, and I think that people should be reflective and think carefully about things. They shouldn't just be extreme just to be extreme, and I think that's where politics kind of crosses over into entertainment. And for me, I'm not that entertaining for sort of that reason. You're not going to get a whole lot of polemical kind of extremism from me. I'm pretty even-handed. There are things I truly do believe in, like capitalism and other things, but ultimately I'm pretty open-minded. So anyway, that's a brief narrative sketch. I hope it didn't take too long.
No, that was perfect. So I guess I think it makes sense to go over some like the recent drama, quote unquote. So I know these questions are going to come up. We have a lot of crossover with like Destiny's community, for example. He's been on the server a bunch. We've known him for a year. So one of the first questions that came in was from Data. Data, you're unmuted. Go for it.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, my quick question is, I think about a month ago, I was on Destiny's, I was watching Destiny's stream, you went on there, and, it seemed like you completely kind of nuked that bridge with Destiny, and Destiny nuked that bridge with you. Do you feel like you reacted too viscerally at the time, too emotionally? Because from my perspective, Destiny was just covering the news. He wasn't giving his opinion on the, what people thought was a rug pull at the time. So do you feel like you were too defensive going into that? And do you regret doing that too, or no?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, Destiny isn't somebody I've ever met. I don't know a whole lot about him. He kind of showed up like almost immediately after I got out of prison, like the first day that I started streaming. He hit me up to like do a Google call, and then he didn't tell me. I was like, yeah, sure, dude, whatever. And he didn't tell me that he was streaming that call to everybody, to his followers. And I'm like, wow, that's really sneaky. He just kind of strikes me, and again, I don't know him from a hole in the wall, but like the couple of times that I have talked to him, like he just kind of strikes me as somebody who's like very aggressive in sort of getting viewers, keeping viewers, doing anything to sort of do that and serve like his own interests, which I think is, he was clearly disingenuous about, the sort of hack that I went through. And it really hurt me that somebody that had interviewed me a bunch of times, including times where I didn't exactly even agree to the interview. Like I've given this guy content for free. And we seem to have had a good relationship. Like the first stream we had a pretty good vibe.